Welcome back to another episode of Red Tinted Glasses. And before we get into the disaster that was Aberdeen's 2-1 defeat to Kilmarnock, we want to start by offering our support to Anthony Stewart in the incident that happened on his Instagram page. The club have obviously come out with a statement condemning the racist abuse towards our club captain. Emotions are high right now, Callum. We're disappointed. We're angry at what we're seeing on the pitch. We do this week in, week out. We try and be as level-headed as possible. But when you have to stoop to that sort of level towards the players, that sort of thing is totally unacceptable. And I think it's safe to say we're totally behind Anthony Stewart in standing up to racism.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, criticism, fine, whatever. As soon as you're bringing that kind of thing into things, though, you've already lost, and it's not acceptable on any level.
Absolutely. So I think it's only right to mention that. And if you do want to stoop to that level, don't support this football club. Well, it is the season of goodwill and giving, but Jim Goodwin and this Aberdeen defence are really beginning to take the piss, Callum.
I don't know why I bother going away. This is going to be a fun one. I'm sure we're both a little bit ill, a little bit miserable after last night. So be sure to stay tuned. Hopefully it'll make you feel a little bit better. If it does, follow us wherever you're listening, like, subscribe on YouTube, all that good stuff. Twitter at @RTG_podcast. It's going wrong already for more plagiarising tweets.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, at least we plagiarise tweets, not content. But hey, that's another story. Instant reactions and all that. Callum, though, you did have a good Christmas and you did get a good Don's related present. You want to tell those that tune in what you got?
I did. Caitlin's Celtic supporting father, may I add, who does look a bit like Glen, actually managed to get me, I don't know how, but it was a signed Martin Buchan captain's armband. If you, like I, are quite young, and unlike I don't have the blessing of an old father who actually remembers him playing. He won the Scottish Cup with Aberdeen and Joey Harper actually in 1969-70 season, and then won the FA Cup with Manchester United. So I thought that was a pretty good present. No idea how he managed to get it, and I was very surprised, pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, very good present, and probably about the only positive thing we have to speak about on this show. So get that in nice and early. Of course, you made the trip to Rugby Park last night. Part of a very strong travelling support that's continued to follow the Dons on the road this season. Pretty impressive given the fact that we end 2022 with just 2 away league wins all season, all calendar year, so I should say, against Motherwell and St Johnstone. Pretty grim stats, especially when Jim Goodwin said that we would be looking to improve that away form after the World Cup break, and we subsequently don't turn up in both of them. So very good. Absolutely.
I mean, he said a few things, but defence, it's going to be easy to fix. That's not the case, obviously. We had 5 weeks to prepare for the Celtic game. Best part of the game plan, best game plan that he came up with was back of the bus. And then, we're going to be working on, playing away from home. First 2 away games against St Mirren and Kilmarnock. No pushovers by any stretch of the imagination, but 2 pretty horrendous performances. So to keep thinking things can only get better, but yet here we are, 4 defeats on the trot.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. But yeah, I'm going to actually come back to that Celtic game in a little bit, because I've obviously been a few kind of talking points on the back of that maybe has had some form of knock-on effect on this team that was maybe a bit deeper lying than some of us thought. But let's look at the team that started the game last night. Ryan Duncan coming in for his first start, replacing Leighton Clarkson, and Jack McKenzie, as many expected, replacing the suspended Anthony Stewart. And as discussed in our full-time reaction to the St Mirren defeat, which we brought you live on the Red Tinted Glasses YouTube channel, Johnny Hayes did not make the squad, probably due to the surface, but also continuing his injury layout. Young Finlay Marshall took his place on the bench. Also on the bench was Dante Polvara. More on both of them a little bit later on as well. Callum, were you a bit surprised to see Ryan Duncan in that starting lineup with Leighton Clarkson out?
A little bit, but once it was revealed, I thought maybe we'll see him sort of in a bit more of an advanced role than he did end up playing, playing him as centre mid when that's not his position. Bloody fantastic idea, Jim Goodwin. But yeah, I was a little bit surprised. I was disappointed about the fact we didn't use this chance to go to a flat back four. I mean, even if it meant keeping McCrory in there alongside Liam Scales, it was a chance to change things. And instead, we shoehorned, Jack McInnes, he's played pretty well left side centre back, but apparently not his natural position. You've got Ross McCrory, a midfielder, in centre back, so you've got one recognised centre back in Liam Scales starting, and then a winger at right wing back. So it was a real mishmash of shit, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think we'll start on the defence, that easy to fix defence, and the mishmash, as you just called it, because we've got a recognised right back sitting on the bench, albeit I know his performances have been very much questioned, not just by ourselves, but in general, the fans, and even Joey Harper as well when we had him on. If you want some more positive content, scroll back a few episodes and tune into that interview that we did with the King. And then you've also got Hayden Coulson, who played left wing back, who assuming, because I was speaking to Stu during the game yesterday, and he picked up on it, that Coulson was very much attack-minded in his brief cameo yesterday and didn't really look to be doing much defending. Now, whether or not that was something that came in from Jim Goodwin, but Coulson looked out of sorts yesterday, gave the ball away a couple of times cheaply in possession, got booked for diving, which I think was incredibly harsh. I don't actually know if Hayden was fully fit. Again, throws question marks for me around the decision to play him. Obviously picked up that rib injury against St Mirren and went off with another injury of sorts last night. But does this again highlight the stubbornness from Jim Goodwin to stick with that 3-5-2? You said there it was a perfect opportunity to go to that back four. We could have even moved Ross McCrory to right back if that's what we wanted, a position he's played at under previous management, maybe a position that might better suit Jayden Richardson, obviously maybe nullify him in terms of an attacking threat. But again, you're playing players in their preferred positions, allowing then us to move Ross McCrory into midfield, into the centre of midfield, instead of having to put Ryan Duncan into that position, a position that he was clearly unfamiliar with and potentially not comfortable with. And I don't think allowed us to see the best of Ryan Duncan last night. And then again, you've also got young Finlay Marshall on the bench. Now, is he just there to make up numbers? We saw him play over in Atlanta. Could he have come on last night for Hayden Coulson instead of putting Vicente Bissau, again, another winger, in there at wing back? I just don't understand this kind of need from Jim Goodwin to want to play players out of position when we've got players that could fill these positions naturally sitting on the bench. Is there a lack of trust or a lack of belief in the manager in these players' ability?
Possibly, and then you've also got Jack Milne sitting on the bench as well.
On Jack Milne, though,
right,
someone pointed out as him being kind of a project because, of course, last season he was playing on loan at Brecon as a centre midfielder before he was recalled, and the club looked to bring him into centre back. So I do see both sides of this Jack Milne argument after I kind of read that point, because Jack Milne, the club want to have as a centre back,
right,
but he has not obviously played competitive club football in that position yet. But so that was maybe a slight defence on Jack Milne, but again, a player that he could maybe have gone out on loan.
Or in
a couple of days.
If he's not doing it here, put him out on loan and he can get comfortable playing centre back, or give him his chance. I mean, we've struggled physically quite a lot. He's 6'4". That would have perhaps helped us deal with things a little bit better, particularly Christian Doige, who bullied us. It's fair to say, I think, in terms of winning the long balls and just posing a physical threat up there. I know he's not the finished product, and if Jack Milne comes in there and has a bad game, that could potentially knock his confidence and things like that. But at the end of the day, he needs to be given a chance somewhere. And if it's not here, then make an agreement with a team, put him out on loan, play centre back, get him used to that, play for 6 months, then take it from there in summer, see what he can do then. But alas, here we are. He's just sitting on the bench, doing nothing, probably learning very little. Fantastic.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe learning a lot and going, this is how you don't defend.
Yeah, and I suppose as well, you also have another centre midfielder. Now, again, I'm not opposed to having Ryan Duncan if we go down your method of having local lads who should know what it means to play for the club, getting into the starting 11. But I just kind of felt a bit sorry for Ryan Duncan last night because I don't really know where he was supposed to be playing or what his role in that team was yesterday. And again, that's nothing against Ryan, but at It's Chrissy tweeted us this morning asking us how long until Dante Povara is afforded the same run in the team that Connor Barron has. Again, another centre midfielder that's remained on the bench. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, Dante was kind of thrown into the team on the opening day of the season, a bit rabbit in the headlights, and has obviously been struggling with injury. But again, another player who is sitting on the bench and you may argue wasting away without these opportunities to get minutes elsewhere. Mm-hmm. Again, another player we maybe will see in January. But again, I guess this goes down to the fact that Jim Goodwin continues to play players out of position.
Yeah, a little bit. And again, I mean, to be fair, we've not seen a lot from Dante Povara, admittedly, well, to give us any reason that he should be playing, but at the same time, we've not seen much from him at all. And in the games that he has played, he got thrown on against Hibs as well, too, when we're already in a pretty poor position. We're being bullied by teams. I mean, we'll get onto Ross McCrory's comments later on, but a lot of it in this league is about fight. And, you've got Ryan Duncan in there being asked to play a lot deeper and centrally, and that's not what he's used to. Connor Barron's been struggling, and I think that's been kind
understatement.
Yeah, lately. And you've got Dante Povara there. He's a big fella. Clearly, he does have quality about him to some degree or another. Worst of all, he brings that physicality and he's got a point to prove as well. But once again, not used. Whether that'll change going into the game against Ross County. Obviously, we'll speak about Jim Goodwin's post-match comments, but he said he'll be speaking to individuals, and you wonder, is Connor Barron one of them?
Yeah, is Bojan Miovski another? We'll come on to, I guess, all positions in a bit, but the way we started the game, Callum, certainly watching at home, it was pretty brutal going. That opening half hour seemed tedious. There seemed to be no kind of reaction from the manner of defeat that we suffered in Paisley. And the thing that kind of struck me was there wasn't really an identity to that Aberdeen team last night. And what was clear, though, there was a very much vulnerability to that Aberdeen team, because anytime Kilmarnock got near our 12-yard box, I felt we looked like conceding. That was, for me, very apparent.
What's a 12-yard box?
The edge of the box, whatever it's called. That's what I call it. Yeah.
I mean, we might have had an easier job defending a 12-yard box, to be fair. But no, I totally agree. I mean, Kilmarnock's game plan was clear. I mean, get forward, be direct as quickly as possible, fight for those second balls, and then they gave themselves, first of all, a very good chance. And they fashioned a good amount of chances with that as well. We were lucky to get away with only conceding 2. But, we had absolutely nothing. And I mean, in the first half especially, I remember on 2 occasions, Ramadani attempting to break sort of centre left, and he had nothing ahead of him. Coulson wasn't trying to make any for sort of overlapping run. And then on the other side, Duke bowling forward, and Matty Kennedy wasn't out wide showing him any support at all. I mean, I don't know what the game plan was at all, but it seems to be a problem that is reoccurring for us, like many, I suppose.
Yeah, and again, this goes back to the points I was making on that reaction at full time. we're not learning from the mistakes. There's no identity to our play. And I made this point as well, kind of when I was wrapping up, that we were going to come up against a manager that we know fine all too well, and a manager that will know how to exploit. And he continues his fine record in Kilmarnock Aberdeen fixtures at Rugby Park, having never lost a game when he's been in charge at that venue. Just so many question marks around Aberdeen, the kind of lack of fight, lack of desire, that Ramadani kind of passage of play that you spoke about there. I remember there was an opportunity for us to break down that left-hand side when Hayden Coulson did come up, yet the pass from Ramadani ended up being behind Hayden Coulson. And I'm like, oh, for goodness sake, there was no pressure under Ramadani. There was no pressure on Hayden Coulson. It's just such a classic Aberdeen thing, though. Watch it when we play Ross County and there's an opportunity to perform a counter-attack. We will 100% pass the ball behind whoever is bombing forward, because we can never make it simple. We always seem to struggle with that side of things. And the fact that we're only speaking about a 2-1 defeat today, Calum, it's quite remarkable, because that scoreline totally flattered us.
Absolutely. I mean, they had plenty of chances. I mean, Bruce ultimately did make a couple, well, it's probably saves you'd expect to make, but saves nonetheless. I mean, Kilmarnock had 17 attempts, I believe, in total. And we were pathetic. I mean, other than, Ramirez putting one wide and then the eventual free kick, I remember very little, at least clear-cut opportunities. I mean, there wasn't any. That might be the alcohol talking, however. It was very poor, and yeah, they could have easily scored more. And I think we were fortunate to get one, to be honest. And I didn't even celebrate the goal when it came, because I know we're not going to score again. So what's the point bothering?
Yeah, and I think the alarming thing is the amount of shots that we're giving up to teams just now since the World Cup break. I think you worked out how many it was.
I remember I on the bus home, I was working out how many shots we'd had on target, which was a total of 9 across the last 4 games, which would be an average of 1 every 40 minutes, and that's not including added time. So the statistics actually worse, and possibly 9 in about 380 minutes, maybe more.
Yeah, which is pretty grim, and I think we're averaging 20 shots on our own goal a game just now, which we're not really giving ourselves much opportunity when we're allowing teams to attack us at will and pass up these opportunities. And another thing, you messaged me this afternoon before we recorded this, when you rewatched the highlights, was something quite glaring as well. I never really actually picked up on it until you mentioned it, was the fact that every time Kilmarnock had an opportunity that they didn't capitalise on, there was kind of no reaction from the Aberdeen defence or goalkeeper to, shout at somebody to close down the ball in, or, waking up, get yourselves going. Where a former Aberdeen defender in Ash Taylor, who once again turned in a brilliant performance against his former club, anytime, and the one that sticks in the memory was when we had a long throw that was flicked on, I think, Ash Taylor always shouts at the defence, where were you? What are you doing? Why are we not doing this? We don't have that just now. Whether or not that's missing with Anthony Stewart out, because I know he does do that at times. But I'm looking at Ross McCrory. He has the captain's armband. Where was his voice last night? Keller Rose, he's been vocal before. Where was his voice? There's a lot of hiding going on in that Aberdeen dressing room just now. Nobody in that team is standing up and taking accountability. I remember putting out that tweet last night about Matty Kennedy come full time, going over and appearing to apologise to the away end. It's all well and good putting your hands up at full time, but go and do something about it during the game. I just think there's a few players who need to take a long, hard look at themselves as well as the manager.
Oh, I would say probably 11 of them last night. Maybe being harsh on Duke just because he's a lovable rogue. But yeah, especially when McCrory comes out, we may as well getting into the points now. Do you have written down what McCrory came out and said post match?
Yeah, that it was that we were atrocious and that the players weren't up for it. Or we've got to question why we weren't up for it.
I mean, for God's sake, I don't know how many fans there was now. Let's just estimate 1,000.
I think it was 1,600, I think Kelly TV said.
Right, well, there we go. Even more than that. I know some of them will have been based elsewhere. However, a lot of them will have made the 330-mile round trip, such as myself. We could have picked out 11 of them, and they would have put in more effort and been more up for the fight than the Aberdeen players were. And, Aberdeen players have been paid an absolute fortune to not even be up for it. I know it's one thing, the quality not being there, like, we mentioned Ramadani's pass going behind, and there was a few others. But, to quote Roy Keane, put yourself about a bit, run into people just to make you feel better. It's just baffling that, if they're not doing it for the manager, there's 1,500 fans in the stand. There was a good travelling support at St Mirren as well.
Mm-hmm.
Do it for them. If not, fucking put your hand in your pocket and give us all back 20 quid for the ticket or whatever it was. That'll be nothing to you. So, at least reimburse us because you're fucking stealing a living rather off us right now, putting in those 4 fucking shit shows.
You feel better now?
A little bit, actually. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, good. But I think you're absolutely right, because questions need to be asked. Why were the players not up for it? Because we have been on that poor run, that 3 defeats in a row. You pick up the point about the fans that have travelled once again in their numbers. You just need to look at our away figures this season alone. Those players do not deserve that level of support that they have got this season. That team doesn't deserve that level of support from what we have been receiving when we travel away from home. That 2 wins this calendar year is wholly unacceptable. And this is the point I wanted to go back to on maybe slightly Ross McCrory's comments. Has that game against Celtic, where Jim Goodwin parked the bus, almost admitted that this team, despite how good we've been at home this season, pre-Celtic, didn't have the ability to go and beat that Celtic team. He believed that his Aberdeen team could not go toe-to-toe with Celtic, and he drilled it into them so much that the players suddenly believed they couldn't go toe-to-toe with Celtic. They suddenly believed that they couldn't win that game. There's a belief that's been taken out with that players. There's confidence being taken out of that players. And for me, that lies at Jim Goodwin's door.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, any confidence that was slowly coming back in that game against Rangers was quickly wiped away. And then we've gone and followed it up with back-to-back defeats at St Mirren, who have got a very good home record this season, Kilmarnock, who as well have been improving at home this season. But as someone else said last night, if we wanted to be serious about European football this season, we needed to get back on track with 3 points last night. We didn't do it. And we'll come on to that slightly. But has that Celtic game really had an adverse effect on this squad mentally?
I think possibly. I mean, and I think as much as I've said, he's gone into the game and wanted to part of the box, but I think there was more of a plan to try and hit them on the counter-attack than we did, possibly. But regardless, given how we've been playing at home, and yes, I know it's Celtic, but there has to be a little bit more of trying to fucking win the game, because there wasn't any of that on the day at all. And also the confidence lost from maybe thinking they've held on to a point and then conceded to Callum McGregor in the 87th minute as well. Maybe played a bit of a part too. But the confidence is gone, and I think that will have played into it. And it's definitely played a part in these next 3 games, between the collapse against Rangers, collapse against St Mirren, and then whatever the fuck that was last night. But also, sorry, to go back to Ross McCrory, I forgot a couple of things. For Joe Wright's goal, he's walking over to Ash Taylor, not making any effort to stop the cross, turns his back. I mean, Ryan Duncan was also having a little jog over, not making any effort to get in there and get in front of them and stop it. And, you know, it's all well and good for Ross McCrory to come out and say it was atrocious, we lacked fight, etc. But where's that leadership on the park?
Yeah.
Why is he not reacting like that when we've just given them another chance? Conceded another goal. Where was it? You're wearing the captain's armband for the day. Fucking make use of it. Show yourself as the leader. Potential captain's material, sorry. Jim Goodwin. My hole at the moment.
It's not normally you that goes full meltdown as well. I think the fact that I wasn't there last night is severely helping my rage. And probably the fact that I went for a dog walk before we recorded has also helped mellow me slightly. But you're absolutely right. Ross McCrory, some of his comments, he's got to look at himself as well, because I believe Liam Scales was getting a lot of stick for it on social media initially, but it was Ross McCrory. And the problem was that goal was coming. We looked so nervous in that centre of defence, and I don't know why, because that, well, I suppose it was Mackenzie and Stewart previous in that game against Celtic, but something wasn't right last night. And the fact that even the second goal, you're allowing Ash Taylor, who skins your right wing back and then crosses with his weaker foot, an unbelievable cross, by the way, missed the opportunity to clear the ball. Actually, I don't think it was the right wing back Ash Taylor skins, because it's Matty Kennedy that misses a header. And then Joe Wright, as long as he gets on target, finds the back of the net. And obviously we'd previously not heeded the warning from a ball into the box when Ash Taylor should have scored from that free kick that Jack McKenzie picked up a booking from. So again, not learning as the game goes on. And to be honest, at 1-0, I thought we're not winning this. At 2-0, I just thought, well, we're not even going to be claiming a point here. Pretty sad that already at that point you have no faith in that team to pull it back.
Didn't even think we were going to score, to be honest. It took a moment of magic from Matty Kennedy. So that tells you how I'm feeling about all this lot at the moment.
But I suppose as well, the fact that, you know, I said that at 2-0, I feel we weren't going to get back into it. We haven't picked up any points this season when we've gone behind. That is excruciatingly bad and a very damning stat that I'm sure Dave Cormack, I know how much you like your data, will have looked into. I said it after the Rangers game when we had 2 away games on the road, the stat about our midweek games. That's now 1 win in 20 midweek games for the club, which is, again, extremely damning. Do you count Monday Night Football as midweek? Because that Darvel game is really scaring me right now.
I know. And you tell you what, despite the level they're at, they'll be fucking up for a fight. I tell you that much, absolutely, especially on the TV. So that's very, very concerning. And also, if you compare our stats with how little points we've taken from going a goal behind, which, you know, is none, and then compare it with the stats that we've given away after even going in front as well, still not great.
No, exactly, yeah, and that's the thing. We're not even speaking about the stat where, as you said, we've thrown away points from winning positions. And as well, the fact of the matter is as well, that away record does need to improve. The fact that only Dundee United have a worse goals against away from home. We're sitting with minus 13 goal difference away from home. That is shocking. And the fact that we're still sitting 4th in the table probably sums up the rest of the league as well. But, you know, before I get into the next point, people have been making a lot of comment about the Jim Goodwin, Stephen Glass comparison. And I think, we're only 1 or 2 points better off than this point last season. But the comparable record between the two, a lot of people have made comments on that. Now, with the greatest of respect to Dumbarton, Peterhead and Stirling Albion, Stephen Glass didn't have to play that cannon fodder in account for the same amount of games played. Stephen Glass was coming up against Karabag, BK Hacken and
Breda Blick.
Thank you. So he had 6 European games in his record. 3 wins, 2 2 wins, 4 defeats in that.
I can't remember.
But again, so people don't want to compare that. Jim Goodwin inherited some of the team. Well, with Stephen Glass, he didn't have the players, but we could see what he was trying to do. With Jim Goodwin, he's got the players, but I have no fucking idea what he's trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, usually you sign players with a system in mind, which...
Questions Anthony Stewart signing?
Yeah, it is the case, you would think, because we started off with a 4 at the back once we'd signed Anthony Stewart and Liam Scales, and then when it turned out that those 2 weren't good enough, we then changed it to this 5 at the back. So that clearly wasn't the plan to start with, especially when you've signed Shayden Morris as a winger as well. We've not even got room for a winger in the starting 11. I mean, it doesn't need to make sense. And if you're playing out from the back, I get the fact he's probably trying to, if it was a 2, you've got sort of a ball winner, if you like, in Anthony Stewart, and then more of a ball-playing defender in Scales. That kind of makes sense. But the amount of times we've tried to play out from the back with Stewart on the ball, rather than just instructing him, get it down the channel, mate. Give it down there for someone to chase, whatever. It is baffling. It really is baffling. I don't know what the plan is. I have no idea what the team's going to become Ross County. I don't even know what the team I'd like it to be in Ross County. If I could change all 11 of them, or 10 of them, leave Duke in, then I probably would.
Yeah. I suppose as well, the second half of yesterday as well, I wanted to see a resemblance of desire, fight, that the players cared, but we didn't see that at all. The subs were sporadic.
Yep, 3 individual changes.
3 individual changes. I know a big pet hate of yours, again, leaving... But again, I suppose you could argue that we don't have the quality on the bench to make all 5 changes, but a huge frustration. And a second half that really just had all the characteristics of a pre-season game, but with Kilmarnock somehow failing to add to their total until Matty Kennedy continues his own highlight reel and goal of season competition against Leighton Clarkson with a spectacular free kick into the top corner. The only highlight, but I was going to say only positive, but is it?
I mean, it was maybe false hope for some. It maybe makes the goal difference a slightly bit better.
It allowed Keller Rose to come up for a corner again.
Oh, bloody hell, don't even get me started. I even then, once Matty Kennedy was stepping up to take it, I was still balling for Duke to take it, and I still...
Although to be fair as well, I think the final corner pretty much summed up our day, because the first corner, which ended up resulting in the second corner, and then Matt Kennedy absolutely blazes it way over everybody else. I mean, sum up how we've been playing recently. But on I suppose then, we've spoken about defensively and the shit show that it is. The midfield has been pretty non-existent as well in recent weeks. Yoba Ramadani desperately trying to carry that midfield, and thankfully avoiding a 6th booking of the season, which now that we're going into the new year, the suspension barrier moves up to 12, so avoids any immediate suspension on the back of a booking. What have you made of the midfield? Obviously, Leighton Clarkson, who I thought was excellent against Rangers. I was disappointed to see him come off against St Mirren. For the first time, I genuinely think we actually missed Leighton Clarkson in that team.
What have I made of midfield, or make of the midfield last night? It was pretty shite. Ramadani's often left with a lot to do. For me, as a ball winner, he's perfect. I mean, he's one of the few that sort of shows that tenacity in the middle of the park. But when you're asking him to do the job of 3 midfielders, and then you're asking him to be the one to be the creative spark as well, which clearly, let's be honest, he's not quite that. It's too much. And Conor Barron has been absolutely anonymous. Whether his head's turned, I don't know. If it has, get him gone now. There's no point in him being here.
I was just going to say, if his head is turned, let him go in January.
Yeah, I think so. Especially with, if Liam Clarkson's going to come back, and then the money you get for Barron perhaps allows you to reinvest in the squad, and particularly if you think about the defence, I know Barron would probably then need replaced, but it might allow us to sort of spread some of that wealth elsewhere and get some actual defenders who are capable of playing football but more importantly capable of defending first.
Well, I suppose then if Barron does go in January and you're looking for a replacement, obviously rumoured this week was Burnley centre-back Kevin Long, the 33-year-old centre-back who's hasn't played any minutes this season and hasn't managed to play double figures in the last 3 seasons, being linked with a move to the Dons. That would get us an actual centre-back and allow Ross McCrory to fill the void that Connor Barron potentially leaves if he goes in January. Into midfield. Thoughts on that rumour of Kevin Long coming to Dons?
I mean, on the face of it, bringing in a centre back who hasn't played that much in recent years, to be kind, it doesn't look good. It doesn't look promising. However, when you look at some of the centre backs he has been behind at Burnley, and some of the response from the Burnley fans as well, saying when he has come in, he's not never put a foot wrong. He's a backup defender of the Premier League. So we've got a League One centre-back starting, a backup defender of the Premier League top-end Championship coming in, 17 appearances for the for Republic of Ireland. Sorry, don't get offended anyone. In a defence that Liam Scales isn't able to get in. It maybe is an improvement. And also at this stage, he probably is wanting to come and play. You can imagine he's earned a fair bit of coin in his time down in England. It looks like he's wanting to come and play. Wouldn't be against it. And also, it's a fucking defender. Get him in before Ross County and let's hope for the best. That's my thoughts.
Well, I suppose he could go straight into the team against Ross County, given Anthony Stewart will still be suspended for that game. But my nervousness on signing an aged defender from down south who's also suffered a previous knee injury, I didn't realise that we had Ross Richardson back in as our chief scout again.
I mean, that's fair, but also in terms of like the sort of Duke and Miovski market where you're going abroad and signing these players that can come in and develop. Right now, in terms of a centre back, that's probably not the ideal position where you're wanting to do that kind of thing, where there could still be inconsistencies and things while they get settled, and also the length of time it took to get Miovski, Ramadan, Ian as well. We can't afford to fuck about like that right now, and especially in January, which is even more difficult.
In January, which we'll come on to with the kind of run of fixtures that we've got coming up as well. But before we kind of get into that a little bit as well, obviously the midfield's kind of struggled in recent weeks, but that's then also had a knock-on effect, I guess, on the top two.
Yep.
Duke works hard. Miovski scores goals. When he's not scoring goals, offers very little to this team. People won't like that, but it's true. I don't know how many times he touched the ball yesterday. Probably less than 10. But again, I suppose with this change of going to the 3-5-2 away from home, which for some reason Jim Goodwin is dead against changing, despite its continued failing, Duke and Miovski are working off absolutely nothing up top. Now, Bojan's obviously had a well-documented poor away record all season for one reason or another, but again, there's got to be question marks around that strike force. Again, goes back to that tweet that it's Chrissy said, when does Ramirez get that chance? Alfie Ballage has been banging in the goals for the under-18s. You look at what happened for Scott McKenna. He was thrown in when kind of unexpectedly, and look how he propelled. I don't see us throwing in Marley Watkins up there because I don't think he has that, what he can offer. But we know what Christian Ramirez can do, and I guess those that have certainly been following the young team throughout the season, we've seen the goals that Alfie Bavage is scoring when it comes through in the match report. A kid that knows where the goal is. We've seen it loads previously. Declan McManus, Lawrence Shanklin, Bruce Anderson to an extent as well. all these guys came through the academy, were scoring loads of goals, and none of them were really afforded much of an opportunity in the first team. Why? Why not? And right now, I was going to say, what do we have to lose? But we actually have quite a lot at stake this season, I suppose.
I know. I can understand wanting to bring in Babbage. I could definitely get behind him, being on the bench, giving him a chance here and there. However, if it's going to be from the start, I think he's still 16. And you're going to put him up against Ash Taylor. Really, I don't think that's going to end well. And potentially detrimental for a young kid like that. And also comparison with Scott McKenna. Scott McKenna had been out on loan, played elsewhere in the first team, played sort of men's football, if you like. I don't know if that's too soon for him, but certainly in terms of Ramirez, the fact he's actually been coming off the bench and playing half an hour or so, I'm very, very surprised at, but I'm glad. I think whilst clearly Miovski, has a lot of quality and is a good goal scorer, when that support isn't there for the midfield, when the service isn't coming, pretty anonymous. And I know it's difficult. He's a penalty box striker. I think Ramirez perhaps brings a little bit more in terms of even attempting to link the play. He tries things, maybe they don't come off. People get frustrated with that, but at the same time,
the effort's
someone's
there
got to fucking make an effort. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And I guess I could see that last night when Ramirez came on. I could see some of the effort that was being put in, whereas I still kind of couldn't see that from Bojan. But I guess difficult. He was probably looking to be up there and receive the ball from those that were doing the work. But it's just really frustrating when you're 2-0 down. And like I said, I just felt at the time we were carrying a couple of passengers in him and Connor Barron at the time. But yeah, if the service isn't there, it's difficult to work off scraps. And I think it also says a lot as well how much the service has dropped with the fact that all 4 goals that we've scored since coming back from the World Cup break have all been outside the box. I think that's very telling in itself as well.
I think so. And then the one time we did put a sort of decent ball across the box, I think it was, I believe it was Duke, put it across from the left-hand side. No midfield runners making a late break into the box, neither Bojan. So the one time there was actually service, nobody was fucking ready and looking for it, not even to feed off a potential scrap, even if they weren't going to get on the end of it in the first place. So
yeah, well, even similar in Paisley on Saturday when Ryan Duncan and Christian Ramirez kind of got each other's way as well. So yeah, we're just really not getting the break of the ball, and that's kind of really summing up where we are just now. And what I guess when we stopped for the World Cup, everything was really pretty, everyone was happy. Probably the break came at the wrong time for us, given how well we were playing. Now Hearts being out of Europe, getting some of their injured players back, although losing a couple, with obviously the injury that Craig Gordon suffered. We're now sitting in 4th place, 3 points behind Hearts, who have a game in hand. But people are also forgetting the fact that sitting behind us in 5th are St Mirren, same amount of points, but with 2 games in hand. One, of course, against Hearts, and the other away to Motherwell, who have only picked up 5 points at home this season. So we can't discount us dropping further down the table. And then you've got St Johnstone, who come to Pittodrie in a couple of weeks, who themselves are in trying to pick up a decent bit of form, albeit back-to-back defeats for them. And then Livingston, who've kind of lost their way a bit, but sit behind us, down in 7th on 24 points, but do have a game in hand on us as well. So there's teams with games in hand that would see us drop down to 6th place, with picking up 1 or 3 points with their games in hand.
It's not looking good, is it? It's really not looking good.
It just shows how quickly it can change, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's very tight, and I think that's probably due to maybe lack of quality. And I'm worried that now Hearts, sort of most of their team back to fitness again, are going to look to sort of kick on, and possibly will, the way they did the last season, and just sort of cruise out into 3rd and not really have any real challenge, while the rest of us attempt to land a punch on the other ones to finish 4th or 5th to claim some sort of European spot. But January, massive month. I mean, in terms of bringing in players, yes, absolutely. In terms of the next 2 games at home, which is at least a bonus, 6 points required as a minimum, especially when you're going into semi-final against Rangers before Hearts away, and then the Scottish Cup against Darvel, and then Hibs away, which is not 2 games you'd like to pick on the road. You probably wouldn't like to pick them at home either. So let alone when we're away from home. It's worrying, and it's a big month, and they need to start getting things right. And I think they need to start getting players in the door as well, because especially once you get to the middle of the month, that semi-final, we'd like to have players in ready and ready to go by that point to try and improve things, because if it sticks the way it is right now, we're going to get absolutely pummeled.
Yeah. And the other, I suppose, big thing as well is January is a big month with a lot to play for, as you rightly said, with the 2 home games. But the big concern for me is how much importance we placed on European football and achieving European football this season. We surely can't throw away the opportunity of finishing third and all the money and benefits it brings 2 seasons in a row, can we? We certainly did it last season with the experiment that backfired massively. And if we're not careful, we could very quickly let it slip out of our grasps by the end of January if we're not careful.
Yeah, absolutely, which is, given the fact Jim Goodwin is still in the job as we record, is why I assume he's going to be sticking with it. I didn't think he would get sacked either, as much as, criticism's going his way. I agree with it. He's going to be here in January.
Is he though?
Yeah, he is. Well, certainly at the start of January. And, if he wins against Ross County, that's paper over the cracks, same as against St Johnstone. So he needs to be backed.
Okay.
And we need to improve that defence first and foremost, because otherwise, regardless of who comes in, it's still going to be a fucking shit show.
Well, let's get into it now then.
Right.
Will he stay or will he go is obviously been the biggest kind of question that is out there just now. You put a tweet out from our account this afternoon, posing the question to those of you that follow us on Twitter at @RTG_podcast. A total of 1,063 of you responded, with 68.5% of those responding in favour of Jim Goodwin out. 31.5% were for Jim Goodwin. Quite a huge majority. Now, Calum, you picked up on the fact that 6 out of 6 is necessary from the next 2 home games, starting with Ross County on Monday. For me, anything less than 3 points on Monday, I personally can't see how there is much support left for the manager.
Yeah, I think that's fair, especially when you consider Ross County are currently sitting bottom of the league. I think that's fair. I just think the fact that he's still here after those 4 games suggests that there must be some belief from above. Who, by the way, I think they have their own fucking problems that need sorted out as well.
Well, I suppose Stephen Glass did, of course, go 5 games with defeat last season, and we all thought when we lost at Dens that was it. Yet he survived till the middle of the end of January. But I suppose with it, of course, being January in a couple of days, I guess that poses the question: what does the chairman do? Does he back the manager heavily to help the squad desperately needed? And if he doesn't back the squad, does that put the writing on the wall?
Of course it puts the writing on the wall. But right now, the situation we're in, Jim Goodwin's here. Unfortunately, for many of you, I'm sure. However, things aren't getting any better right now currently with the squad we have. So you either wait until, maybe he loses the semi-final, we lose away to Hearts, away to Hibs as well, maybe scrape through against Darvel, and he gets the boot then, right? At the end of the window, when it's still his players, and you give him the boot then when a new manager can't come in and improve things or bring in his players at all, and then we're in the same spot as we were last season. Or you've got to back him. Okay, I know we don't have an infinite pot of money right now, but I think we are doing all right. There must Dave Cormack's definitely doing all right. I don't think you can just sit back and watch this carry on as it is, because otherwise we'll end up halfway through the month at least, and then have to sack him, and then got the semi-final. Do we have someone in the dugout by that point? I think they've got to back him and sign 2 centre backs and a fucking right back, maybe a left back while we're at it, a centre mid.
A whole new team is basically where you're going with this.
Yeah, I don't know, where they will end up with players, but I think he needs to be backed. They need to either decide, get him off now, get someone else in, back them, or back him to the hilt this month. Otherwise, what's the point in pussyfooting around it?
But I think then that also goes back to the point that I was making. How much does European football mean to this board?
Well, let's hope it's a lot, because then if it is, you'd think they would back Goodwin to the hilt. That would seem, I don't know if it's the most sensible option, but the most realistic option right now. You'd like to think that they are aware of the places that need improved. I mean, I don't. Right now, I'm not confident we're going to finish third. I'll be honest. However, fourth still gets us European spot. Fifth still gets us European spot. If we go and win a domestic tournament, it's all very important to them. We know it is. However, they need to fucking put their money where their mouth is, or act now, which they've not done as of yet. So it's got to be the former, surely. Realistically, not what you want, but realistically.
So, okay then, what would you want right now? I'm going to put you on the spot.
Well, what would I want right now, or what do I think should happen?
Well, I asked you what you want, so we'll go with that.
What I'd want would be Sean Dyche at 80-24 right now. However, that's not going to happen, is it? I want to go walk out my house and there'll be a Rolls Royce to drive it. It's not going to happen, is it? Got to be some sort of sense of realism, and in my opinion, backing him makes the most sense in terms of the board, giving him funds to improve things. And if then that doesn't work, then fair enough, give him the boot then. But we can't sort of let him go now, bring in a new manager, which we won't do. We won't be able to get him in probably for another week or two, given the faff we've seen previously. And then all of a sudden we're at the semi-final. We've not signed anyone, and things aren't any better.
Yeah, I just don't see where we're going right now. And what do you make of
sign Kevin Long and Josh Dacres Cogley, and everything's gonna be okay. All right.
Well, everything's not going to be okay if we don't win on Monday. But what do you make of some of the discussions and posts going about that Jim Goodwin's lost the dressing room? Do you think there is a degree of truth in that there's maybe some sort of friction between the players and the management just now?
Possibly. I don't think he's helped himself some of the times with the way he's done it, done things. But at the same time, had he not come in and sort of laid down the law, we'd probably, be like, oh, it's our Stephen Glass. It's another yes man. It's another puppet for Dave Cormack. So,
what about then his comments after the defeat last night, saying that it wasn't good enough, that the players need to take a long look at themselves? I guess he's hoping that the players are going to use that as fire in their belly come Monday. But given the way we've seen some of the players react this season, do you think it could go against Jim Goodwin throwing the players under the bus like that?
It always could. It absolutely could. However, even though Jim Goodwin's come out and said it, which I agree with, and I don't think he's devoid of any criticism by any means, I think some of his tactics and substitutions especially have been fucking shocking. I mean, the players have to know it themselves, surely. I mean, Ross McCrory's come out and said it afterwards, which isn't ideal, but hopefully that means they're at least fucking aware of what we expect and what they should, first of all, expect of themselves. And they should be able to use that as fuel. They shouldn't have needed to in the first place, because putting in fucking effort's the bare minimum. But, there'll be 15,000 probably there against Ross County, regardless of the fact they maybe deserve to play in front of about 15. Fucking show us what you're about then.
And how much do the players need to take some form of responsibility? Because we said this as well during last season under Stephen Glass. The manager can only do so much, but when the players cross that white line, it is up to them to put in a performance fitting of representing this football club.
Mhm.
And right now there is a number of them not putting in the level of performance that us as fans expect when we go and pay our hard-earned money to watch this team. Ultimately, the buck will fall with a manager. But surely, Ross McCrory's come out and said it in the press, but there are a number of this squad that right now are not playing for the team, playing for the fans. They need to seriously buck up their ideas. But does Jim Goodwin have the balls to drop those that need dropped?
He had the balls to fucking get rid of half the team last season, so I hope he would have the balls to do the same again. They need to take responsibility, absolutely. And for example, Connor Barron, if he's not going to sign that new contract and he wants to earn a decent move elsewhere, he's not going to do that by playing like he did against, well, Kilmarnock, St Mirren, etc. Is he? There needs to be some sort of level of improvement, and they need to have to take responsibility for themselves. I know Jim Goodwin has signed, for example, Anthony Stewart, and he's made him captain. But at the same time, Jim Goodwin is not expecting anyone to not be able to control a football on the edge of their own box and then give away a penalty and red card, are they? There needs to be some sort of responsibility.
Yeah. Obviously, as we said, we carried out that poll on the Twitter page, which had an overwhelming majority in favour of Jim Goodwin leaving. Now, there's been a lot of responses to the tweet as well. Do you want to go through some of the responses that have come in and maybe pick out a few that could provide some good talking points for us to argue over for a little bit longer?
First of all, I'll pick up on Adam Richardson, who basically says how I'm feeling right now. Regarding Jim Goodwin. If you'd asked me before I sat through last night, I would have been resounding in. I'm not sure if I'd have been resounding, but, last night was so bad, it certainly set off a few alarm bells for me, which I agree with. There is Chris Lives, who is calling for Barry Robson until the end of the season and let.
I was about to say that before that tweet came in, actually.
Yeah, and would let other managers apply for the job, which interesting, to say the least. John McD has said, I'm in between. I'm in, but only if he's backed in January, and out only if he's out just now, which is basically the point I was trying to make. None of this letting him float along with no backing. That'll just be another season to disappear down the drain. I agree. However, there's a lot more saying out, essentially. I mean, there was even someone saying he could have gone for Brown, which I think was rogue, to say the least. But Scott Parker, Scotty said, from day one, he's a bottom six manager that plays bottom six football, very limited tactically, has no idea how to change a game, and like Glass, players look like they have no faith in him whatsoever, or no faith in what he's trying to do, which I also think is a good point.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point because there is that lack of idea, and obviously the players maybe, apart from the Celtic game, which obviously they carried out his plan, but I don't really believe that plan was the best plan. But the way we've capitulated in games, his tactical nous or lack of has been very alarming. And I think Shelty Dawn as well picked up on the point of his people skills or lack of, as he said, and I think as well, he doesn't help himself with the sound bites he comes away in the media, further angering fans. But do you think the way he came across in that post-match conference, there has a bit of resignation about him?
Yeah, he seemed defeated and certainly hurt. I saw a lot of people saying he looked broken, which is concerning. But I think at the same time, he's still here for now, unless we've missed something whilst recording this, or if it's happened before it goes out. Hopefully the players can see that and look at how they've disappointed him. Ultimately, they have let him down to a degree as well as us at home are paying our hard-earned money to go and watch him. But he did seem certainly defeated, I think is a word I would use. And whether that would mean sort of wholesale changes to those who perhaps haven't been given a chance but now deserve to based off other performances more than anything else, I don't know.
Yeah. And a couple of other comments that I think I'm kind of just looking through, kind of where I am on the situation. Paul Cool says, out, some of the away performances this season have been abysmal. Really feel for those of you that forked out and travelled to every game this season away from home.
Okay.
He is tactically inept, too stubborn to change, and the Celtic display shows he has no faith in himself or his players. And I think for me, that Celtic game for me was the biggest alarm bell, but also the point that Paul makes around the stubbornness, whether it's his own ego or it is him just trying to justify what he's doing, is shooting us in the foot. Because you look at last night going with that 3-5-2 when there was the perfect opportunity to go to a back four. Even when Hayden went off, you could have gone back to a back four then, still didn't do it, stuck with it at a back three. It's not good enough.
No. I would argue that the fact he's being so stubborn perhaps does suggest he does have faith in at least himself, if not the players.
Yeah, but it's not working, so you're just going to keep doing the thing that's detrimental.
But the point was that he's not believing in himself. He's believing in it. It's shit.
A point coming in from Michael says, I think he'll get one more game in an attempt to salvage the situation, but he needs to swallow his pride and ditch the awful formation. Unfortunately, that game coming up at home, I don't see us changing from a 3-5-2. I think he'll stick with that. A lot of people asking the question on who would come in if he does go. A big fan of everyone just assuming and jumping on the Sean Dyche bandwagon. And I've seen a couple of suggestions around Davy Martindale as well.
I saw someone mention Rafael Marquez. If that is the thing that's going to happen, then I'll be all for. I'll get the sombrero bracket back out. However, I know. Right now, I don't know. I just think I'm still trying to work out whether he should be here or not in the first place. I think if we come to that bridge, we will then cross it and discuss it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think though Neil Gray made a couple of good points in a couple of tweets as well. He said, I can't see what sacking him will achieve. That would mean waiting for a new manager to discover where the issues are with the squad. Although if any new manager can't see that the issues are defensively, then they're not the right man for the job. Goodwin already knows where our issues are. So I would give him until the end of the season minimum to sort it out. Having said that, if we aren't prepared to give him the required funds, what can he do? A lot of people seem to forget our home form, apart from obviously the last two games. And I think obviously we are superb at home, and that's probably why we are where we are in the league. It is just a way, but again, goes back to the point that we are not learning from our mistakes.
Yeah, I think that basically sums it up. I think they do need to, also being realistically, they do need to back him, hope that improves, believe in that it'll improve also, and not sort of just wait for further capitulation. Sort of if they sort of half-heartedly buy into it. That's sort of what I'm thinking. And you know what? I'm feeling bloody awful after all this. I just hope I feel better after 3 points against Ross County anyway, or anyhow.
Anyhow, and it is of course a trip to Pittodrie for the Highlanders as Ross County come to town. Of course, Ross County very much our bogey side just now, so hopefully things can get better. Although we at least won't have to face Aura Edwards after his red card last night at Tannadice. The Dingwall side passing up plenty of opportunities in a game that Malky Mackay felt got away from them in defeat, that sees them sink to the bottom of the table, and the potential of the Mallard being taken away from the Premiership again. Which again further adds to misery felt by many, I'm sure. But Callum, how important is it for Aberdeen to just focus on themselves? Ross County, I'm sure, will be coming here looking to haul themselves back off the foot of the table, but we've got our own problems to sort. And all that focus really needs to be channeled in-house and doing a professional job as possible.
Absolutely. And they need to, if the rest of the team don't feel the same way as Ross McCrory, then they need to prove him wrong, I suppose. And look, Ross County, we'd sort of know what we'll get from them, let's be honest. You know, they'll come up here, they'll be stuffy, and they'll hit us with a counter-attack, and they've got players who can do that. However, thankfully, Aura Edwards will not be playing because he does look a tricky player. 3 points. That needs to be the focus. Whether it's pretty football, we score 4 like we have done previously at home, or whether we just shithouse a 1-0 win, I don't care, because at least we'll know that they are capable of fighting for 3 points if that's the case. Just get us the fucking 3 points and make us feel a little bit better, please God.
Yeah, I think though this game is not going to be pretty by any stretch of imagination.
Which suits Ross County probably.
Absolutely, they are going to come in to Pittodrie and sit in. They will bite your hand off for a point. I think it'll be kind of similar to last season when we played them on the last game before the split. I just hope it's a different outcome, albeit.
Thanks for the reminder.
Yeah, no worries. But we saw how that game went, where they sat in and frustrated us for 90 minutes. Even their first visit to Pittodrie last season, where we last gasp grabbed the equaliser thanks to a Ross Laidlaw error, despite our best efforts to score in that game. So they'll be confident in their own ability to come and sit in and cause us problems. And I'm sure Malky will be happy for them to do that, knowing the fact that we're going into this game with so much frustration in the stands already. And it won't take long for that frustration to spill onto the pitch. Well, certainly from the stands onto the pitch, if things don't go right in the early stages on Monday, will it?
Nope. If we start the same way as True against Kilmarnock, it won't take long at all. If we're not, maybe not in front, but looking very threatening and looking like we will be going for it come sort of 20, 25, half an hour mark, it won't be good. And in fact, it'll probably be pretty quiet. And they need all the help they can get. They need to come flying out of the traps and start the game positively with intent to be direct, to get at Ross County, to cause them issues. There's a reason why they are where they are in the league. No disrespect. Other teams have been able to do it. Prove that you're no worse than other teams, please, Aberdeen.
Yeah, I think I kind of agree. Just by any means possible, just give us something positive to get into. But what changes would you make for Monday?
Ladies and gentlemen, Aberdeen will be playing 4-4-2. I'd be all aboard the 4-4-2 train. It's never going to happen. I would like it to, though. This is where I'm putting on what I would like to happen and not my realistic hat. So I'd like Joe Lewis to start in goals.
Why?
Because Keller Roost's past few games has not filled me with confidence. And in fact, I think he's actually making our defence's job a little bit easier by his sticking to the goal line mentality.
And I was going to say, is it because of that? Because Steve Tosh picked it up a couple of times in Red TV. He's almost like a magnet on that goal line, very reluctant to come for crosses. And that was evident at times, certainly last night, how much success Kelly were getting just lumping the ball in because they knew the keeper wasn't coming.
Mm-hmm. I think we're having Ross McCrory and Scales as the centre-backs for me. Jack McKenzie at left-back. Jaden Richardson backing at right back. Then we'll have Dante Polvara in the middle of the park with Ramadani. Kennedy on the right. Or Vasalin off the left. Duke Miovski. Or Ramirez for the latter. That's what I'd like. It's not what's going to happen at all. It's going to be the same old shit. But, we'll see. Well, I can dream.
If I was going that 4-4-2, I would have Clarkson, if fit, in that midfield alongside Ramadani.
I would have him in if fit, but I just don't think he'll be fit. But that's based off nothing.
Yeah. Well, something needs to change, and hopefully it is our run of form that does so. I suppose looking ahead to January as a whole, how important is 3 points for us from this game? It has to be. Anything less is unacceptable, isn't it?
I think that sums it up. We have to win. That's all.
Yeah, because not only do the fans need some sort of confidence, the players need confidence because, as we said, you're then going from having Pittodrie as feeling like a fortress to 3 straight home defeats, potentially, or 3 games without a win at home, ahead of St Johnstone, who are doing okay just now. Maybe their fans will think they could be doing better. But then, as you said, we've then got the semi-final and three away games. It is a huge month on and off the pitch, really, isn't it?
It is. And also, we need to win some bloody games to make us even slightly attractive to anyone coming in.
Well, exactly. You could potentially be saying to players coming in, you've got a cup final to look forward to.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, if we win the first two, then we're probably still fourth, but it can be pros prospect. Look, we're chasing third. You can help us achieve that, and that'll get us guaranteed group stage football. Then you've got the semi-final, potentially a final. We need to start things off with 3 points, and then focus on the next. Make sure that's another 3 points. And then maybe we'll start to pull things back together again, potentially. I mean, I say this is so easy, but we've not seen any evidence of any of it in the last 4 games.
No, and I think for me, that's the biggest thing is seeing that evidence. I want to see that reaction. I want to see that desire. I want to see that fighting passion from those in red come Monday, because that has been severely lacking over the last 2 games. And just hopefully, Callum, when we meet up in the new year, we've actually got something positive to speak about, because I'm sure for you guys at home, it's not exactly enjoyable listening to depressing Aberdeen podcasts. So let's just hope that we see an upturn in fortune.
Absolutely. And if you have enjoyed our misery, then please do follow us wherever you're listening in. If you're doing so, on Twitter at RTG_podcast, on Instagram at RTG.podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, comment down below with your thoughts, leave a like while you're there, and subscribe if you've not done so already. Ding that notification bell. And if you're wanting to see me be a bit more of a tube and a bit more cheery, perhaps, then head over to my YouTube channel for some Football Manager content as well. It's just Calum, right? Simple as. Can't really go wrong.
Yeah, hit that notification bell, because if the worst comes to worst with the manager, we will of course be back with a live episode reacting to anything that does happen. We reached 90,000 views on YouTube as well today. Big milestone over there. So thanks to the continued support on that channel and of course the audio platforms. Until next time, I want to wish all of you tuning in wherever you are across the world Happy New Year, and we'll see you in 2023.
A Merry New Year.
Yeah.